The Sahara Group may have roped in Lalit Modi to sell its hotels abroad. One interested bidder, Madison Capital, informs the Supreme Court that the cash-starved group has asked it to forward all its bids to the former IPL top boss.
For us, growth is not as important as profitable growth.
It may have just confirmed its order for 250 new aircraft from Airbus, but Indigo's president Aditya Ghosh tells CNBC TV 18 that the country's most profitable airline is not looking to grow recklessly.
Telecom operators reiterate their demand for a national telecom tower policy, say the government needs to do its bit to ensure that there are no call drops in the country.
The National Consumer Disputes Redressal Commission agrees to hear the government's plea against Nestle India, but not before it raised some tough questions for the government in light of the Bombay High Court order.
It's a shaky start to the week for the Indian markets, with both the Sensex and the Nifty ending in the red despite banking stocks outperforming in trade today.
The Prime Minister makes an impassioned plea to businessmen based in the United Arab Emirates, says the potential for growth in India is coupled with UAE's energy can indeed propel the entire region to become a superpower.
The Road Ministry's Cash for Clunkers scheme may just put a huge burden on the government exchequer. CNBC TV 18 analysis shows that the Finance Ministry may have to factor in an additional cost of more than 20,000 crore rupees if the proposal is implemented.
The Delhi government releases a new city taxi scheme which recognizes online aggregators like Ola and Uber. Rented motorcycle schemes also find a mention.
A bomb blast in the center of Bangkok rocks the Thai capital. 27 people have lost their lives while more than 70 are injured.
मेरे सेना के जवानों 20-20, 25-25 साल से लटकी हुई समस्या का हमने रास्ता खोज रहा है।
हम वचनबद्ध है कि वन रैंक वन पेंशन होगा, रास्ता निकलेगा, अंधेरा छटेगा, सूरज निकलेगा, ओआरओपी मिलेगा।
They've made supreme sacrifices for the nation, and yet today the government looks the other way. One rank, one pension, the long-pending demand of ex-servicemen still remains a distant dream. This after Prime Minister Modi failed to announce a way forward during his second Independence Day address. And worse than that, last week protesting ex-servicemen were allegedly manhandled by the Delhi police. Well, Surbhi, that clearly is one of the headlines that we're tracking this evening.
Absolutely, and it's such an unfortunate shame, Shireen. Former defense chiefs have also written to the government urging the government to resolve the issue as soon as possible. This even as two veterans have begun a fast unto death at Jantar Mantar. Ex-servicemen have said they will boycott all government functions henceforth.
Well, let's hope the issue is resolved expeditiously, and we will, of course, be tracking that story very closely right here on CNBC TV 18. But let's kickstart India Business Hour with the market action. A shaky start to the week for the Indian markets, with both the Sensex and the Nifty ending in the red. The Sensex lost close to 200 points in trade, while the Nifty shaved off more than 40 points, ending just above 8,470. This despite the bank stocks rallying in trade. There was optimism surrounding Project Indradhanush, which powered a rally in the bank stocks, with the CNX PSU Bank Index surging more than 6%. In fact, staying with that story, stock markets have given a huge thumbs up to PSU banks today following the banking reforms package announced on Friday. While some brokerages believe that this is a new dawn for PSU banks, not all brokerages, especially foreign ones, are as enthused. Most have picked Bank of Baroda and State Bank of India as winners. Ekta Bhatta joins us now. Ekta, well, reactions from the brokerage world mixed.
Well, I'll start with Morgan Stanley. They, in fact, have written quite a comprehensive note on Bank of Baroda as well, so I'll just come to that in a minute. They've said that the 7-step plan is a good move, but it's not good enough to stem bleeding state-owned banks. Bank of Baroda, however, is a game changer given that it is the only bank to get a private sector CEO as well as a chairman. They've upgraded the stock onto a double upgrade, which they've called it, all the way from underweight to overweight, and they've hiked the target price to 240 rupees as well. Religare on PSU banks. They don't think the new Indradhanush plan is a game changer for PSU banks, but some positives include the creation of the Bank Bureau Board as well as capital infusion. Edelweiss, however, has been very positive on it. They've said that it vindicates the positive stance that they have on PSU banks. Though it may not necessarily reflect in earnings in the near term, it will help in terms of improving the franchise. They maintain the stance of increasing weight on state-owned banks, particularly Bank of Baroda, SBI as well as Union Bank. Lastly, Jefferies has said that it was a little underwhelming and they like the KPIs, however, for accountability framework. The missing part of it, however, was a comprehensive plan on HR overhaul, which was missing according to them. And the options of big bang reforms now seem to be remote according to them. And SBI makes the most sense amongst state-owned banks.
All right, Ekta, appreciate you joining us. And speaking of State Bank of India, we reached out to Arundhati Bhattacharya, the chairperson of State Bank of India. She believes that this is a step in the right direction and that the formation of the Bank Bureau is something that is the need of the hour.
The idea that they would have the banking bureau up by 1st of April, that's something that's very heartening. Of course, you know, the HR initiatives, they are also very important because at the end of the day, you need to be able to incentivize good work and disincentivize bad work. So both ways it's very important, and if that is not there, then you obviously have indifferent performance.
Okay, well, moving on to some other stories and all the corporate action in particular. To kick things off with the Sahara saga, there's a fresh twist in the case. Help for embattled Sahara chief Subrata Roy coming in from another embattled individual, Lalit Modi, one of the bidders for the group's foreign assets, has informed the Supreme Court that Sahara had asked the company to forward its bids to former IPL top boss Lalit Modi. Ashmit Kumar now joins in with all of those details. Ashmit, never a dull moment in the Sahara saga and in Mr. Roy's life. What is this latest twist all about?
But what we understand is that Subrata Roy is not short of friends, specifically not in London, and specifically with respect to the former IPL commissioner Lalit Modi. Now here's how things panned out. As we had reported heading into the weekend that Kane Capital had submitted its bids for Grosvenor House. Simultaneously, Madison Capital had also made a bid of $800 million for Sahara's 2 New York hotels, and it is at this juncture that we saw some interesting revelations coming through. Madison Capital arguing that as per their understanding, Lalit Modi was the one who had been served with the mandate for selling off all 3 of Sahara's hotels, that this mandate was served on Lalit Modi by none other than Subrata Roy himself, that throughout their conversations with the Sahara Group, they had been directed to take these negotiations forward with none other than Lalit Modi, and that throughout their bidding process, they were in constant touch with not just Sahara officials, but with also Lalit Modi. So clearly a new angle emerging to this entire Sahara saga. Subrata Roy clearly betting on the London Connect for raking in the big bucks. But speaking of the big bucks, Sahara also assured the Apex Court that they were in the process of raising the required amount of funds. They submitted 2 MOUs before the Apex Court. Under the first MOU, Sahara claims that they're confident of raising as much as $6 billion. This MOU, as per Sahara's claims, pertains to development of real estate assets in London as well as back home here in Ambi Valley. The second MOU is for an outright sale of all 3 of Sahara's assets, all 3 Sahara hotels, for a consideration of $2.15 billion. So some big numbers being dropped here by Sahara. The Supreme Court for now giving Sahara Group and a clear window with respect to going forward, conducting these negotiations at least until September 14th. That's the date of the next hearing. And Subrata Roy clearly will be betting on his old friends and new, to take things forward, to rake in the money, to bail him out of the jail. Back to you.
Well, is there ever a dull moment in the Sahara story? But Ashmit, hang in there because let's talk to you about another story that you've been tracking, and that is the latest in the Maggi noodle saga. The National Consumer Dispute Redressal Commission has agreed to hear the government's plea in the matter, but not before we understand raising some tough questions for the centre. Ashmit, take us through what were the observations that the Consumer Court made today.
Well, the NCDRC was, of course, host to the first hearing today to the government's complaint seeking damages of 640 crores and some strong prima facie views being expressed by the NCDRC. The Commission here observing that, in fact, there were strong questions made with respect to the very maintainability of the government's complaint in light of the recent Bombay High Court order. The High Court, of course, setting aside the FSSAI order. The NCDRC also questioned the hurry that the government appeared to be in pressing for this suit, this complaint before the NCDRC. They also, in fact, NCDRC also raised the point that, in fact, all the reports that the government had been relying on to allege that there were impermissible lead content, all these reports also had been quashed by the Bombay High Court, observing that these labs had not been accredited. So on the back of these concerns, the government came out fighting. They argued that their concerns that they've expressed via the complaint go far beyond just the FSSAI order. They argued, in fact, that their concerns that they have expressed deal with unfair trade practices, misrepresentation to customers. And on the back of these concerns, what we understand is that the NCDRC, 1, has agreed to hear the petition, and 2, has also issued a notice to Nestle to come back with their reply. We'll see further action on September 30th. Back to you.
All right, Ashmit, thanks so much. So lots of court action today. Let's move on and actually get you the government's point of view. And the government on its part is right now trying to put up a brave face with the Additional Solicitor General, Sanjay Jain, who appeared for the government, saying that the plea filed with the Consumer Redressal Commission is very different from the one heard at the Bombay High Court.
All those observations which were made by the Commission were all valid observations in the wake of the fact that Bombay High Court at this point in time has disbelieved the test reports which were relied by the Food Safety Authority to ban Maggi noodles against the respondent. Since those samples have to be tested again, so at this point in time, all that the Commission was asking us that are we structuring our case on the basis of those test reports only. Then we clarified to the Commission that our case is not based on the test reports alone. Of course, test reports were part of our case, but our case is not structured on the test reports alone. Our case is basically on the fact that you have been misrepresenting.
And even as the government tries to fight it out at the Consumer Redressal Commission, the food regulator, who is facing a backlog of around 700 product approval applications, is working towards expediting the approval process. We learned that the authority is looking at beefing up scientific and technical teams and also bringing about more clarity in the product approval process. Priya Sheth, who broke that story, is now joining in with the details. Priya, what are you picking up?
Well, in what could be a relief for the food industry, we're learning that the Food Safety and Standards Authority of India is looking at fast-tracking product approval applications. Now, we're learning that this they're doing by increasing or beefing up the number of technical and scientific officers. Now, just to take you through the numbers, for every 4 technical officers, there's 1 scientific officer. And at the end of December 2014, there were 4 technical officers and 1 scientific officer. But this number of technical officers almost tripled to about 13 at the end of June 2015. And what sources are telling us that this could increase to about 20 to 22 by the end of this year. Now, essentially, what officials at the FSSAI are saying is that they're examining applications based on the newly approved basket of standards, and they're also saying that a majority of the applications lack basic scientific data. Therefore, they are looking at reducing the to and fro as far as food companies are concerned. So we'll keep you updated as to how this pans out going ahead. Back to you.
All right, need of the hour there, changing reforming the food regulator. But speaking of reforms, there could be some good news for all commuters in the National Capital Region. The Delhi government, which has released its new taxi scheme today, recognizes online aggregators like Uber and Ola for the first time. Ronojoy Banerjee standing by now to take us through the details. Ron, of course, a lot of this will depend on what the Delhi High Court finally decides to do, which is currently hearing Ola's plea. But it definitely does bring in relief for the online aggregators, because for the very first time, the government has recognized them.
Absolutely, Shireen. In fact, this is the first time that they've been recognized, and also the government has expanded the scope, the very understanding of radio taxis, because for the longest time the issue really was that under the radio taxi scheme, the existing radio taxi scheme of 2010, companies like Uber were not recognized, because Uber's main stand was that it's not really a traditional taxi company, because it contended that it's a technology firm merely aggregating the services. But for the first time, it has been recognized. In fact, the new scheme is going to now be shortly notified by the government, and maybe hopefully in about 2 weeks' time we will see this new scheme getting implemented. Let me quickly take you through some of the key preconditions that the government has set down as per this new radio taxi scheme 2015. It says that vehicles only above the capacity of 600cc engines will be allowed. It also says that the taxi operators should have a fleet anywhere between 200 and 2500, and it explicitly says that aggregators, taxi services will be allowed. It also talks about adding extra facilities and services to ensure safety for the passengers. It talks about the need to have a panic button placed within the taxi. So all these preconditions are very clearly laid down, and what is important to note that this is going to force the existing yellow and black cabs also to upgrade their services. Also, for the first time, the government has launched a motorcycle scheme which will give tourists and other ordinary citizens the opportunity to hire the motorcycles and sort of take it out on a spin or whatever they would want to do with it. But the key question really, Shireen, is what you rightly said, is we don't know what the implication of this is going to be on the Delhi High Court. We'll have to wait and watch for that.
All right, Ron, appreciate you joining us with those details. Well, Surabhi, you've got the latest as far as Indigo is concerned.
That's right. Big news coming in today, Shireen. Another milestone in their decade-old partnership, perhaps. India's largest domestic airline by market share, Indigo, has placed a confirmed order to purchase 250 A320neo aircraft from Airbus. For the French aircraft manufacturer, this order is the biggest by numbers till date. Indigo had signed a preliminary agreement with Airbus to purchase these aircraft in October 2014. The culmination of this deal is also quite important, as aviation experts had expressed concerns about Indigo's commitment towards this order. Of course, we know that Indigo has filed for its upcoming IPO prospectus, and Indigo said that the purchase agreement for these 250 jets had lapsed, but they were still in discussions with Airbus. So today's announcement has laid some of those concerns to rest. In fact, CNBC TV 18 Sindhu Bhattacharya caught up with Indigo President Aditya Ghosh earlier. She started off by asking him about the delivery timeline of the 250 Airbus aircraft. Let's listen to what he had to say.
It will start from about 2018 and go up to 2026. So we have actually planned out or charted out our growth for the next decade.
Right.
The second one is a good question, but it's a difficult one for me to answer in terms of what will be the ambient fleet. Clearly, not all 530 airplanes and now in this case 430 more airplanes will be incremental. Some of them will be definitely replacement airplanes. But what is that ambient fleet? It's a good problem for us to have, because India is constantly growing at a faster pace than we would enter the year with. And if this market grows at the way it is, then we'll keep more planes for a slightly longer period of time maybe. For us, growth is not as important as profitable growth. We will never grow for the sake of growing, but it is actually consistent, profitable growth that is extremely important for us.
Well, that's Aditya Ghosh of Indigo, and we also spoke with the Executive Vice President of Strategy and Marketing at Airbus India, and they say that while the European major is indeed very happy to bag this order, it's definitely looking to bag more such orders from other airlines. They're also speaking with SpiceJet. Take a look.
We look at the Indian market, I think, a lot more optimistically than Boeing. So we have about the same number of airplanes in terms of our forecast for the next 20 years. But based on the in-service fleet and the backlog of aircraft that we have, compared to that of Boeing, we are pretty much close to 80% market share. So, going forward, of that 1,700 airplanes, at least 80% of them should be from Airbus. Very pleased to be given the opportunity once again to try and get back into the SpiceJet fleet. So, yes, we are talking to them, but it's early days yet. The $2 billion mark that our CEO discussed with Narendra Modi should still stand.
Well, that's the Indigo Airbus deal, a $26.5 billion deal. It's the final day of Prime Minister Narendra Modi's two-day visit to the UAE. After extensive talks, two sides releasing a joint statement which is being seen as a major diplomatic victory for India against Pakistan. Both sides have condemned efforts, including by states, to use religion to justify and support terrorism against other countries. They've called on all states to dismantle terrorism infrastructure where it exists and bring perpetrators of terror to justice. Earlier in the day, the Prime Minister reached out to the business community in the UAE, saying India presents the opportunity of investments worth $1 trillion. Prime Minister Modi is currently just in a bit going to address the Indian diaspora in Dubai. This is another Madison Square Garden type of event. You're seeing live visuals on your screen. that is the national anthem being played, I think, and then we will listen into what the Prime Minister has to say.
भारत की संभावनाएं और यूएई की शक्ति, ये दोनों के जुड़ने से ये जो 21वीं सदी एशिया की सदी है, वो सपना पूरा हो सकता है। जबकि भारत अपनी आजादी के 75 साल मनाएगा, हम 50 मिलियन एफोर्डेबल हाउस बनाना चाहते हैं।
Well, we'll get you the latest live visuals and coverage from the UAE in just a bit, but let's move on to the other big story that we've been tracking. Telecom operators have been asked to submit a weekly report on call drops, but they are not willing to accept all the blame for the problem, with all service providers reiterating their demand for a national law on tower installations. Malvika joins us now with the details. Malvika, what is the telecom operators' argument and where is this headed?
Well, basically, these telecom companies have come under a lot of pressure since this issue of call drops and quality of services has been taken up by a parliamentary standing committee. And now, given the fact that the government has also proposed that they may be imposition of disincentives, and new TRAI chairman has indicated that he's going to look into the issue of call drops and run a data analytics on the problem, the telecom operators today got together and they emphasized on two things. One, that there is no incentive for them to intentionally cause call drops. In fact, they contend that almost 95% of the telecom tariff plans are seconds based and not minutes based, so there is no incentive if a call drops. And the other point that they are making is that this is also a myth, that they do not want to make capex investments. They reiterated and emphasized that their capex to revenue ratio is to the tune of 73%. So shunning all the allegations that it is the telecom players who want to make more profits, and because of that telecom services are suffering. They have sought support from the government in the form of a national tower policy, because they feel that the primary cause of call drops is the lack of sufficient number of towers and that of spectrum. Let's listen into what some of the telecom CEOs had to say.
We are talking of a common national tower policy, and this is where we start with requesting DOT to be able to define telecom services and infrastructure as essential services. Number two, the only one point on spectrum. Whatever spectrum has been issued to us, if the same spectrum is harmonized. Third, a national, uniform, implementable and enforced.
Himanshu Kapania there of Idea Cellular, but Prime Minister Narendra Modi addressing the Indian diaspora. Let's listen in.
आप वे लोग हैं जिन्होंने परिश्रम की पराकाष्ठा करके कोई 10 साल से, कोई 15 साल से, कोई 20 साल से, कोई 30 साल से रोजी रोटी कमा रहे हैं, लेकिन साथ साथ भारत के गौरव को भी बढ़ाने में कभी पीछे नहीं रहे। आपके व्यवहार के कारण, आपके आचरण के कारण हमेशा भारत गौरव अनुभव करता रहा है। भारत में अगर अधिक बारिश भी हो जाए तो दुबई में बैठा हुआ मेरा हिंदुस्तानी छाता खोल देता है। भारत में अगर कहीं कोई प्राकृतिक आपदा आ जाए तो दुबई में बैठा हुआ मेरा देशवासी चैन से सो नहीं सकता है। जब अटल बिहारी वाजपेयी देश के प्रधानमंत्री थे, भारत ने न्यूक्लियर टेस्ट किया था। दुनिया चौंक गई थी। कुछ लोग गुस्से में आए थे और रातों रात भारत पर सैंक्शन लगा दिए गए थे। भारत को आर्थिक मुसीबतों में धकेल दिया गया था और तब वाजपेयी जी ने विश्व भर में फैले हुए भारतवासियों को आह्वान किया था देश की मदद करने के लिए। और आज मैं गर्व से कह सकता हूं कि वाजपेयी जी के उस आह्वान पर हिंदुस्तान की तिजोरी भरने में, गल्फ कंट्रीज में जो मजदूरी का काम करते थे, उन मेरे भारतवासियों का सबसे बड़ा योगदान था। और इस अर्थ में यहां बसा हुआ हर भारतवासी एक प्रकार से हिंदुस्तान के हर कोने से जुड़ा हुआ है। पिछली बार जब देश लोकसभा के चुनाव के लिए व्यस्त था, चुनाव नतीजे आ रहे थे, हिंदुस्तान ही नहीं पूरा दुबई नाच रहा था। ये प्यार भारत माता के कल्याण के लिए मां भारती फिर से एक बार सामर्थ्यवान बने, सशक्त बने, संपन्न बने, समृद्ध बने, ये सपना संजो करके दिन रात एक करने वाले आप लोग मेरे सामने बैठे। भाइयों बहनों, आज यहां तो हिंदुस्तान के हर कोने से आए हुए मेरे भाई बहन मेरे सामने हैं, और दुबई वो सिर्फ लघु भारत ही रहा, ऐसा नहीं है। अब तो दुबई एक लघु विश्व भी बन गया है। दुनिया के सभी देशों के लोग कम अधिक मात्रा में दुबई में रह रहे हैं। ठंडे से ठंडे प्रदेश के लोग भी ये 40-45 डिग्री तापमान में रहना पसंद करते हैं। क्या ताकत दिखाई होगी इस देश ने, क्या क्या मैग्नेटिक पावर पैदा किया होगा विकास के माध्यम से कि पूरा विश्व यहां आकर्षित हो जाता है। हिंदुस्तान के हर कोने से आए हुए सभी देशवासियों ने अभी 2 दिन पूर्व 15 अगस्त भारत की आजादी का पर्व मनाया। मैं भी आप सबको आजादी के पावन पर्व की अनेक अनेक शुभकामनाएं देता हूं। यहां केरल से आया हुआ भी समुदाय बहुत बड़ी मात्रा में है। मैं केरल का उल्लेख सविशेष रूप से इसलिए कर रहा हूं क्योंकि आज केरल का नववर्ष है। मलयाली, सहोदरक, एंटे हृदयम, निरन्या, नववलसरा, आशम सफल, नमस्कारम। हर हफ्ते हिंदुस्तान से 700 से भी ज्यादा फ्लाइट यहां आती हैं। दुनिया में किसी एक देश के साथ इतनी बड़ी मात्रा में हवाई आवागमन अगर कहीं है तो इस इलाके से है। हर हफ्ते 700 से भी अधिक फ्लाइट आती है, लेकिन भारत के प्रधानमंत्री को यहां आने में 34 साल लग गए।
Well, that's Prime Minister Narendra Modi there getting his Madison Square Garden moment in Dubai, enthralling the audience in Dubai with the contribution that they've made, and of course trying to connect with the Indian diaspora. And I'm sure that's going to be a long speech that will continue. But from all of us here, for now, thanks very much for watching.
Good night.